What do you see these markets going? If you were looking at crystal ball and you were looking at the future,
Mhm.
what do you see these markets going in the future?
Okay. All right. You going to be
Just,
with
just,
me in this for a minute?
yeah, I just want to get your opinion.
Okay. So this is an interesting response that you're going to get in the sense of I could just say, well, this I think it's going to be good. Like I could just
Okay.
do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go back to 2020 and COVID hits in the United States, the feds basically print double the amount of money and they flood it into the marketplace. Okay. And they gave it to everyday men and women for the most part. And the everyday men and women took that money and bought stuff. So where'd the money ultimately go? It went to the corporations and the high ups and the people who are already wealthy ultimately, right? But it helped us get what we need for whatever, right? So all of a sudden, all these companies and were flush with cash. The markets were up and people were making money. And wealthy people don't just stick money into the bank. Like when
No,
I
they
have
don't.
extra money, it goes into the bank. Not wealthy people. When they have extra money, it goes into something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of those started buying sports cards and collectibles across I mean, like literally collectibles across, all properties were doing really, really well. And Marvel cards wasn't really on the scene at that time. But eventually by 2021 it was.
Well, even in
And by
2020, you saw a spike in comic books,
oh yeah,
right?
man. Who
Comic book prices shot up.
if you bought a comic book in 2020, you're hoping that it's still worth that today. Like
That's right.
they were
That's right.
expensive.
Yep.
And so Marvel cards saw an influx of that money. When I mean that money, I mean the big money, the wealthy money, saw an influx of that primarily around May of last year. And that escalated all the way into, well, really, really last month. Okay. And so the question for me becomes a couple of different things. I, not to get into economics here because I'm not an economist, but I do have to live in the headlines because it affects my job.
Yes, sir.
So what I would say is like the other thing that increased over this time is inflation, meaning the cost of going to the grocery store is significantly more expensive. And you're like, wow, I never thought I'd make $100,000, but I still feel like I make 60, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that scale is for you where you live and where you work. And but yet the economy is still booming. Why does this matter? Well, I actually think we're headed towards a recession. And I think we're headed towards a recession for a couple of different reasons. Number one reason being inflation. The feds have not been able to get their heads wrapped around how to slow down this economy. We had over 7% inflation last month. The goal was 2%. The goal was 2 and it tripled that and then some. And they've been raising interest rates. And if you're paying attention in January, the mortgage rate, I'll use the mortgage rate, not the Fed rate, because that's something different, but the mortgage rate was around 3 and a quarter. And today it's around 5 and a quarter, 5.5. It may be 6 and a quarter by the end of the year, and it's still not slowing down the economy. So a global recession will likely be in order at some point to do that. Now, don't be afraid of recessions. Okay. I know that's a negative word to some people, but think of it as pruning. Like if you didn't prune your garden, it wouldn't be healthy. It would be overran.
Mm-hmm.
It would have unhealthy growth that wouldn't produce fruit. So pruning has a way of getting rid of the unhealthiness so that the roots get deeper and richer and that the buds and the fruit produce more. And that's what a recession can do for an economy.
And there's a theory that there's a cycle to recessions
Yeah. So
as well.
recessions typically happen around every 9 years.
That's right.
We blew that out of the water last time. Right now, we're at record low unemployment, which you're like, yes, record low unemployment. Well, guess what follows record low unemployment? Recessions, because you peak and then you drop, right? And so when you say future of stuff, I actually think there's going to be, if you're smart, possibly some sort of a decline here in the immediate future. If the recession has an impact on the hobby, which if you're a Warren Buffett type, you buy when people sell and you
Mm-hmm.
sell when people buy.
You buy hard when people sell.
Yeah. And so if you could get yourself in that cycle in a healthy way, it could be a right opportunity for you. And maybe it won't be. I don't know. I know that there's some particular cards I'm looking for that if they pop up at the right price, I'm going to be on them. You know, I already have it in my mind, right? But long term, this is what I would say. Long term, the ability to track data is going to continue to have a major impact on the hobby. When you think of the elements of value, and there's quite a few of them, especially in the definition of fair market value, but confidence is one of them. When someone has confidence, they're willing to pay for something, and they're maybe willing to pay more for something. Well, data and transparency has a way of creating that. So when I can pull up a card and go, okay, what's the data on this one? How many are there out there, and what have they been selling for? What's the trend lines? It has a way of creating confidence. And as that builds and the data is available, I have a curiosity around the fact that, well, maybe people will start seeing collectibles as more of an asset because you can actually interpret the market and understand it. And to some degree, you can't predict the future, but to some degree, it becomes a little more predictable. And if that continues to happen, I do think that you may see this stuff become, more of an investment from a collectible standpoint. Maybe it never happens. I don't know. But I think the ability to track the information and the data is going to be useful to it. And you definitely see that being the investment from Fanatics, from eBay, across the board, COMC, they're all focusing in on the data and giving you the ability to see it and have it in your hand at real time.
That's right. What data do you use to determine values? Are you using eBay or using something else? So
if we're talking specifically about Marvel cards, I will use eBay, but I will tell you, for me, and I'm fortunate in this regard, I am connected well enough that the people in the hobby are really my biggest source. And that's important to me because of the fact that the explosion of Marvel cards was so fast, so quick that it was really dangerous in the sense.
Yeah.
And so I actually had to rely on some people in my life in a really strong way to say, okay, Justin, I know what the data is saying today, and I know where the points are today. But what should you do? And I'll give you an example. So I told you I chased down those 2099 Spider-Man PMGs. That was $1,500 into them. I sold them for $30,000 and a blue Spider-Man PMG in return, a blue Miles Spider-Man PMG in return. You might have looked at the data at the time. In fact, you would have looked at the data at the time and said, oh, wait, the purple alone might be worth $30,000 soon. Right? And at one point in time, you might be right. And you might be right today for that. Okay. But for me, I was like, to some degree, if I want to stay in this hobby for a long time, I want to stay up. Obviously, I've spent a lot of money. You can see that in the background, right? I want to stay up in the hobby. And to do that, I view it as a moral obligation to sell when I have that much of a profit on the line. Okay. Unless it's something that's really, really special to me that I just, it's got to stay with me. For me, you gotta be willing to pull that lever and make that sell happen. And you know what? That put me into my next card. So
I was about to say, because you're pulling that, that's a strategy here. So you're pulling that lever. Take us to the next step.
Yeah. So the next step is actually quite fascinating for me. So the next step is, okay, so I sold that card here. I'm using my connections, and what I mean by that is relationships of people who have a high understanding of this hobby, and my experience and some of my own tuition to come and buy the cards that are down here and go ahead and get this, that I think have a strong position into the future. And it may not be up to 30, but I might could take that 30,000 and buy, say, 12 cards, or 15 cards that are going to go up that might actually net me 40. You see what I'm saying?
But you're also mitigating risk as well, because you're diversifying into more cards.
I'm diversifying into more cards, and I'm not trying to do it alone in terms of I may miss, right? I may miss my green Spider Gwen may never sell for more than 9,000. But I don't have an intention to sell that right now, but that's always there. The, another strategy, and this one's the risky one that I don't advise anybody to do, but this is, I do have a maverick personality. I'll go ahead and confess. If you tell me have to do it this way, I'll do it the other way.
I'm the same way.
You're the same way? Okay, good. You're your own man.
Anybody that knows me knows that
I got FD the Maverick. I love it. I'm Justin. I'm Spidey Jew the Maverick. So I actually have, with the sales that I made, I actually have the cards that I bought and acquired. They're going into a particular place, and they'll eventually get listed for sale. They're being graded right now. And Spider-Man Metal's coming out. So you had X-Men Metal, like I showed you, these cards here. I didn't show you these. So these are sketch cards from X-Men Metal. Know where your camera's at, Justin.
Yeah.
And then, you saw this one. That's X-Men Metal. Well, they're coming out with Spider-Man Metal. And I actually think, now I'm biased to Spider-Man, as you all know, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think the way that set's built, the way it was built, that set was born like in the minds of Upper Deck before the Marvel card boom. Okay. So the print run, I think they've adjusted, but they haven't adjusted to probably what it needs to be. We're probably talking 45,000 boxes where 36,000 were printed for X-Men Metal. And the X-Men Metal seal product right now is going for $1,000 a box, which is nuts. Okay. Mm-hmm. This set is going to be special. And in my opinion, and don't get all hyped and start going crazy, but that's just my opinion. And so I am positioning myself to take these cards that I bought that I'm like 6,000 into total. Maybe another set that I'm into for 5,000. And I actually think I can move them and have enough money to buy 45,000 worth of Spider-Man Metal. Right?
Okay.
Now, what you have to remember, and this is to me the cool part, is that 45,000, if things work out and they may not, the actual dollars that came out of my pocket originally was 1,500.
That's a power move. That's a power move.
And 45,000 of the product of Spider-Man Metal, because, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this, I'm going to be buying cases. So the odds of case hits, it's going to be around 10 to 13 cases, something like that. And about 37% of that product is going to be PMGs. And I don't know if you've heard, but Upper Deck hired the original Arena Designs who created the 1997 NBA PMGs to do these PMGs. So you're going to have that really nice red and green foiling.
Oh, yeah.
Corner to corner without the gray border. It's going to me, who knows? It may look like crap. I don't know, but because we haven't seen it yet. But I'm preparing myself to be in a position to really leverage that set. And who knows? I guarantee you one thing, I'm going to have fun doing it.
Yes, you are.
That's the guarantee. And if I just end up with all the cards and I'm out my original investment, then yeah, that's fine.
But everything you just went through though is a culmination of patience, time, knowledge, being a part of your community, talking about things, leveraging that to move up, and then thinking about where else do I want to go,
and being willing to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means for me is, look, I made a lot of money, so I don't want to say not being greedy, okay? Because that was a lot of money. What I mean is not cheating Justin today in a hope that I might get more tomorrow.
That's right.
And being okay with the fact that the person who bought those cards actually will likely make a lot of money. And what I like about that, and this is an analogy I like to use, a sheep, like if I'm a sheep you can shear me over and over again, but you can only skin me once. So if I try to take somebody for the max amount of money possible and put a lot of risk in their court, I actually don't give them the opportunity to come back to me over and over again to buy, or vice versa. If I'm trying to buy and I'm trying to cut them to get something cheap, then I actually possibly lose an opportunity to buy from them again in the future. So let's just shear me over and over again. Like that's what I'm okay with. And I have a rule. I sell something every week. Every week I sell something. And for me, that keeps me personally honest and keeps me moving stuff to keep money flowing, because at the end of the day, you got to have cash flow. That's the breath of life in this hobby, in my opinion, unless you have like a really amazing job and all that kind of stuff, right? So with that being said, it's, to me, selling something every week keeps me honest and keeps my collection, fresh. That makes sense.
I like that. You shared a lot of gems right there, telling that story, walking people through that. A lot of information there, and it's a mature approach. It's a next level kind of thing. Right now, I spend my time building a foundation of cards. Right, you're talking about what I would like to do a couple of years from now.
You're on it, man. You're building a community too. That's what I love.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's what it's all about, Justin. And I always wanted to have an outlet where I could talk to everybody about anything that they're collecting. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to you today. You have great knowledge. I respect what you're talking about. I want to get on with you because it's for the community, and we all can learn something, and we all can share. It doesn't matter who I talk to. I don't understand. I'm just going to say this, right? I don't understand why people I'm only sports cars. Everything else that somebody is doing, they shouldn't even be doing it. Why are they doing it? And then questioning those people about why they're doing it. Oh, I'm only Marvel. And I don't understand why that person's doing that. Oh, I'm only autographs. I only collect autographs. I only get them in person. Since I started collecting as a young kid, I've met all different types of people trying to do different things. And I want all of us to realize that there's similarity in everything that we do. There's similarity. You're talking about PMGs. I may be talking about Steph Curry. At the end of the day, the knowledge that we're talking about, the level of understanding when it comes to collecting and moving around in the community is the exact same. And I think the more and more people understand that, the better overall hobby will be.
And if you would like for me to respond to that,
go ahead, sir.
What I would say is, as I have no capacity to stop that guy or gal from saying those things, what I do have control over or capacity for is to welcome them into the community of Marvel cards, if that's what my focus is. Yep. And one of the ways I did that last year is, I don't know if you saw my Instagram page, but I had a very top flight artist do an homage to Michael Jordan's rookie card and Michael Jordan's Jumpman Jordan image, where I had Spider-Man painted as Michael Jordan dunking the basketball as like the rookie card, and I had Miles Morales in the Jumpman Jordan. And I posted those and said, hey, I want you to know you're welcome into Marvel cards. Like, I'm happy that you sports guys and gals are coming into the hobby and doing it your way, like the way you want to do it, whether that's flipping or investing or whatever that is. That's okay for me. Like, I have nothing around it. That's for you. And I want you to know that you're welcome. And for the people who have this kind of position of judgment and are saying, well, you shouldn't do that because Marvel cards is this, or you shouldn't do that because sports cards is this. Like, I'm just going to give them space to be there. And maybe it changes for them. Maybe it doesn't. And that's okay. I just want them to know that when they're ready, if they ever are, there's a welcome out here that says, come on in, right? Come be a part of what we're doing. And hopefully to be a benefit for the community as a whole.
Well, Justin, just watching your stuff, man, I already knew that. So that's why I respect you.
Man, I appreciate that.
And like everyone that I talk to, and definitely you, there's going to be more conversations in the future. about how markets evolve, things happen. I want to come to the people who are very knowledgeable about what's happening.
Yeah.
And then talking to them and showing there's a dialogue, right? This is the South Side of Chicago in LA talking to Louisiana right now.
Yeah, I love it.